Okay, Hare Krishna. So we are studying the 5th verse of the Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction. In the last verse, we heard about the 6-fold loving exchanges between devotees. And so now we're going to hear a little bit more about how to have those 6 exchanges with different levels of devotees. Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Titanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. So everyone is awake? It's 5:30 in the morning there.
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Thank you for getting up so early and for this class. It's showing you all have such great dedication. Very good. Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshashti chet pranati bischa bhajantam isam shushushaya bhajana vigyam ananyam anya nindadi shunya hridam ipsita sanghalabhya. One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation, diksha, and is engaged in worshiping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So Srila Prabhupada begins by saying, in order to intelligently apply the 6-fold loving reciprocations mentioned in the previous verse, one must select proper persons with careful discrimination. And Prabhupada, in the purport, it's a little tricky because he uses different definitions at different times. And that is one reason for that is that Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama, they really just translate as beginning, middle, and topmost. And so in the Nectar of Devotion, they are used to talk about the adhikar, or the eligibility to take up devotional service. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto, those same 3 words are used to discuss the levels of devotion. So they're different, and they're kind of mixed here to some extent in this purport. So it takes a little, but the main thing is to get the essence of what Prabhupada is telling us here. And there's so many wonderful essences here. So Prabhupada then talks about that there's the Kanishta Adhikari, the Madhyama Adhikari, and the Uttama Adhikari. And the Uttama Adhikari has this, as mentioned in the Bhagavatam, has no propensity whatsoever to criticize others. Their heart is completely clean, and they obtain the realized state of unalloyed Krishna consciousness. So they're also, Prabhupada calls them a Maha Bhagavata. 1 second while I get my computer going here. So there are different levels of devotees, we know that. And we can choose who we associate with, and also how we associate with them. So we want to associate with anyone who's interested in Krishna consciousness, and especially we want to get some association with great devotees, or at least devotees who are more advanced than us. And these days, of course, that often comes in the form of Zoom or recorded classes or such things, or written emails and things like that. And so if we want to serve, if we say, oh, well, according to this verse, I only want to serve the Mahabhagavat and associate with the Mahabhagavat, that might not be a very good understanding, especially in our society, because if we want to serve the Mahabhagavat, Srila Prabhupada, he tells us to associate with the devotees in ISKCON and to serve all devotees. In the Bible, Jesus says that I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So in other words, you serve Jesus by treating even the neophytes as if you were treating Jesus. So similarly, we serve Prabhupada by serving his devotees in his society. Now, we may serve them differently. A person who's less advanced than us, we may serve them by giving them some instruction in Krishna consciousness. For someone who's our peer, we may serve them by having very friendly relationships. With someone who's more senior to us or more advanced than us, we may serve them by serving them, in the standard use of the word. But in all cases, we're serving. It just may be how we serve is different, but we want to develop a mood of service to all Vaishnavas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about this in his Harinam Chintamani, where I think we may have mentioned this last week. There's 26 qualities of a Vaishnava mentioned in the Shastra, and 25 of them are called Tatastha Lakshanam, and one of them is called Swarup Lakshanam. And the Swarup Lakshanam is being surrendered and fully dependent upon Krishna. And the Tatastha Lakshanams, being a poet, being sense control, being all these different things, those are marginal, or Tatastha. And the main way that you judge a Vaishnava is by the Swarup Lakshanam. So I don't know if we did this, but did I do this last week, Achyuta, where I said, could you please tell me who's the most advanced devotee on the call? Did we discuss that last week?
No, we didn't.
Okay, so you're very intelligent, Prabhu. So from top to bottom, we have 51 other devotees besides you and me. Who's the least advanced and who's the most advanced? Could you give me a list, please?
I can give one list. I'm the least advanced. I can tell that.
Very wise guy. You see, it's very hard because one's surrender to Krishna is a very internal thing, and it's very hard to judge. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur therefore uses that example to tell us to not offend anyone, because you don't know. The person who's taking the shoes and putting them away in the temple may be the most advanced devotee in the whole yatra. right? We don't know. So therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, be careful about everyone. Still, having said that, as we learn in this verse, there are some symptoms that we can be aware of. But still, having said that, we are careful like that. So, so we don't. So in other words, when we're judging devotees, the Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam, our desire is to serve all of them. It's just that we may serve them differently according to our relationship to them. Okay, so before we go on, that first paragraph, any questions or comments about this point?
Hare Krishna Prabhu and Haram Achyuta Padaravandadasya. Prabhu, do we really distinguish between the three categories, Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama, or do we simply respectfully serve or respect the different devotees in each of these categories? Do we really need to look at categorizing these devotees and then say, I will approach them in these three different ways, or simply serve your heart out?
I think it's a very good question, Chita Prabhu, because it's a practical question, a very practical ISKCON question, right? And I think basically we serve devotees. We of course know who's a more senior person or who has a position like Bharata Krishna Prabhu or Murli Sham Prabhu, or so just out of respect for, of course, both of them are more senior than a lot of us, but also we respect position. Just when you're in an organization, you do that. We also respect ashrams. If someone is a sannyasi, we don't get into the whole thing. Are you a Madhyama Adhikari sannyasi? Are you Uttama? Are you Kanishta? We just say, okay, Maharaj, please set my obeisances, right? So naturally we do that. I have to think about this a little bit because it's such a good question, because practically speaking, of course, so there are some things that are clear, like who's more junior, who's my peer, who's more senior. The junior person may be more advanced than me, right? They may have been performing all kinds of devotional service in a previous life.
Yes. Right?
So yes, our basic desire is to serve everyone. Still, we know some people give really good pravachans. They seem to have some, good realizations. So we want to hear from them and attend their lectures. Someone may seem to be very devotional when they're chanting, so we want to attend their kirtans and things like that. But it's not that we think, oh my God, that person's a neophyte, I don't want to hear their kirtan. So I think you're right. On a practical level, we may not get too caught up in all of this, but there is some sense we understand.
Like you log in.
There's some noise from someone. There's some certain things in Vaishnava etiquette about seniority and things like that. I was going to say something. In the Gaudiya Mat, they're so picky about this. Sometimes when they line up for prasadam, they line up exactly according to the day you were initiated.
Wow.
Like that. If we did that, we have so many people at some of our programs, it would take an hour to figure that out. But So I mean, it's here in the Shastra, so it is important, especially in the sense that we want to, take initiation from someone that we have faith in, and that seems to be to an advanced devotee. But another point that you're bringing up, Achyuta Prabhu, is, there's a saying in English: "It takes one to know one." You've heard that saying? Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a little hard to judge someone more advanced than us because we're not advanced enough to understand them. So therefore, we also have to be careful, just like it says that if you see Lord Nityananda walking into a liquor store, you should not assume that he's buying alcohol, that he's going there to preach, right? So sometimes we can't, Vaishnava Kriya Mudra, sometimes it's difficult to understand the mind of a Vaishnava. There's that. And then there's the other practical thing that if you see someone who's more senior to us, but they're really not behaving in a nice way, then usually probably we just want to. One thing Prabhupada taught us about his godbrothers was he said, respect them from a distance. So you don't, if you're very close to them, you might hear them criticize Prabhupada. Or in the old days, that doesn't happen. None of them are alive anymore. But he did want us to follow Vaishnava etiquette. So I thought it was a beautiful instruction, respect from a distance. So if there is a devotee that you just are in conflict with, and even if they're a senior person and you just hear them say things that we can just respect them from a distance. We don't criticize, but we may not want to, our mind might get disturbed by intimately associating with them. So we respect them from a distance. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Any other questions, comments so far?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Rasa Sindhu Girdhari Das here. Prabhu,
Yes,
in the purport, there is on talking about the Kanishta Adhikari, it says Kanishta Adhikari is a neophyte who received the Harinam initiation. And often we see that many devotees do not take initiation for a fairly long time. So should they not be considered as Vaishnavas or devotees? Often
yes,
this question is.
yeah, we should consider them devotees. Just like when Prabhupada took how many years before he took initiation? Anyone know?
About 35 years.
I think he took 11 years from the time he met.
Actually,
He met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in what, 1920 or 22? Yeah, and then he took initiation, I think, in 30 or 31. So if we follow this purport, then we would consider Prabhupada Kanishta. So like I said, it's so hard to judge people. Some people may really just want to make sure that they're waiting to be ready. Some of them, maybe their husband or wife is not really a devotee yet, and they're really trying to bring them up on Krishna consciousness before they take their vows. Some of them may be waiting for someone who's not yet an initiating guru to become an initiating guru. There's devotees who want to take, many devotees who want to take initiation from Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj, for example. And they're just waiting. Manu Swami also, people have been waiting forever. And they probably will continue waiting. So there may be many reasons, right? And we don't know their mind. But so we have to apply this purport, which was written in the 1970s, to a situation 50 years later, and at least try to get the essence, right? So yes, one devotee, Prana Balaba Prabhu, if we have Gaudiya Math and ISKCON practicing devotees in the same family, how to deal with that situation? Well, it's tricky, but probably the best thing is with respect, right? With respect for, especially if you want the family to stay together. If everyone respects, then there's no problem, right? If one person's trying to beat them over the head with their guru's understanding and telling them that their guru is not so good, then you're probably not going to have a very peaceful family. But if you don't talk politics and you they respect Prabhupada and Prabhupada's disciples, and we respect whoever it is, then maybe that can work out. But we don't want to get into politics and which is better, ISKCON, the Gaudiya Math, blah 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 blah. It's but we don't want to hear blasphemy. We don't want to hear that. So that becomes tricky if in the same family people are criticizing each other's parampara, that becomes tricky. So I would suggest that we make an agreement in such a family to no criticism, zero, and just show respect when it's your guru's birthday. They respect your guru. When it's their guru's birthday, you show some respect on their Vyasa Puja, and we go on, because really we agree on 95%. But in Kali Yuga, what we do is we focus on the 5% that we disagree on. So, Lord Chaitanya, he was so sweet with the Tattvavadis, the Madhvacharya followers, and he didn't accept a lot of it, but he said at least they accept the form of Krishna, like that, and he had some other similar conversations, even when he was talking to the Chandkazi and saying that your shastra is inferior to the Bhagavatam. He was speaking so sweetly to him. He said, "You're like my uncle," and so I would suggest we try to have sweet relations. I hope that answers your question, Prabhu. Subandha Govinda Prabhu, discriminate among people around and seeing everyone equal. Which principle to give higher value? Well, this is a Chincha Beta Beta Tattva. We should do both. Ultimately, we need to have spiritual vision, right? Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhu Kabinoy Shravanadi Sujachite Koreye Udoy. That everyone has Krishna Bhakti in their heart. And at the same time, we do make discriminations in this world. We don't, like, as Prabhupada would joke, everyone's equal, but that doesn't mean you go up to a tiger and embrace the tiger, or you associate intimately with Mayavadis, or you go distributing books at all the brothels in the country, right? We show some discrimination for the differences in this world. But that, this is tricky, because even we see in ISKCON, we sometimes have this thing, pure devotional service, varnashram, which one should we do? And it's neither one or the other. We have to find a way to find the best of both. I hope that answers that question, Prabhu. Guru Swami says, there are instructions how to deal with equal level and senior level and junior level. It is very difficult to guess what is the mood one carries internally. What are the factors to follow this principle? Is it age-based or, I think like you said, you understand the principle. The principle is Vaishnava Seva. That we should have very deep in our heart. And similarly, we should keep deep in our heart, rejecting all of our mind's desires to criticize other Vaishnavas. But we already talked about this. It may be seniority. It may be knowledge of Shastra. It may be, good qualities. Just like, here's an example. I'm more senior than Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj, but I know he's much more advanced than me. So I offer my respectful obeisances to him, right? And I'm probably, I'm more senior than any devotee who's initiated by anyone other than Prabhupada, because I joined in 1976. But there's so many devotees who are much more advanced than me, much more advanced than me. So I think practical things, like we said, people who have positions in our society, we belong to the society, so we offer them respect, out of respect for that position, right? And then knowledge, it might be devotional qualities, it might be seniority, it might be, and I think we have a pretty clear idea of who we treat like friends, don't we? Don't we generally have a pretty good idea of who's like a peer of ours, a friend of ours? And then we have a pretty good idea of someone who's kind of newer in Krishna consciousness. And then we generally have an eye. I mean, I think probably 80 or 90%, there's no question. It's pretty clear. There may be this 10, 15% or 20 at the most that may be a little gray area, but I think in general, it's pretty clear. Okay. Rajeshwari Pran Mataji has her hand up.
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhu. I generally observe in the association, two things happens. Either one thing we talk about Krishna and talk about the devotees, the good part. And the other part also, sometimes it happens that we hear about the other devotee in a negative way, like some criticism of the other person's opinion. And we may not offend, but we tend to carry the feeling what the other devotee had given about the third person. So how to avoid and how to stop that thinking about other person, how to stop criticizing in mentally, Prabhu, if not physically or verbally or straight.
What I do is I'm talking to devotees, that happens, and I go, hello, Hare Krishna. Oh, I have to go now. Hare Krishna. Yes. Even though there was no phone call. So I've tried to find an excuse to leave that association very quickly. Because we don't want to hear, I mean, of course, if it's a good friend, we can, a person that we have a good relationship, we can say, Mataji, Prabhuji, I really don't want to hear anyone's criticism. Or at least, let's not be critical. We might say that we should, let's talk in a neutral way or something like that. Or we, and try not to be too affected. Now, we know that sometimes devotees can do bad things, and we might not want to associate with someone who really has, is criticizing devotees all the time, or talking to other men's wives, or these kind of things like that. But that's mainly, we have to understand that's mainly Varda Krishna Prabhu's responsibility, Murli Sham Prabhu's responsibility, and other leaders' responsibilities ultimately to deal with those situations. It may be our responsibility to bring that to their attention. If there's something really bad that's hurting other devotees. But generally, we should just try to find a creative way to leave that association. I mean, if we can say, listen, let's talk about Krishna. If that works, that's fantastic. But somehow or other, we should avoid it, because like you said, then next time we see that devotee, we start having all these negative thoughts. And with social media, it happens 20 times more. People will say anything on social media. My recommendation, and it's only a recommendation, is to get off of social media or use it very, very little, maybe 5 minutes a day, plus 10 minutes, because there's some good things if you can find a pravachana, but usually you can find those without scrolling through your whole, Instagram or Facebook or whatever we're using in India these days. It's such it creates such a false understanding of what life is really about. It's so much better to sit down quietly, don't have your phone or computer with you, open up a book, Srimad Bhagavatam, maybe do 2 or 3 minutes of pranayam, get your mind nice and peaceful, and then read about Lord Chaitanya and Chaitanya Charitamrita, or pick up your beads and very peacefully chant Hare Krishna. And even though at first it may seem uncomfortable because the mode of passion is so strong, after some time we start really saying, wow, why did I waste my time looking at my Facebook feed for so long? I missed out on the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So life is short, and we should be careful about what we do. And computers and phones, we really should be really careful about. Really careful about. Is that all right, Mataji?
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna, Prabhu, there's one more question on the chat.
There's at least one more, right? There's one that was sent directly to me also. Let's see. As you mentioned, is giving instructions to a Kanishta also considered to be a yes? Of course it is. You may have to. The question is, as you mentioned, is giving instructions to a Kanishta also considered to be a service? Absolutely. Yes. Definitely. You're helping. You're serving that devotee by giving them some understanding of Krishna consciousness. So it's definitely service. It's one of the best services. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, one who gives this instruction to my devotees is the most elevated of all. So if you can do that, that's a wonderful, wonderful point. And someone wrote me privately. Verse 5 begins with honoring a devotee who is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, not necessarily initiated. A higher level of respect is given to a devotee fixed in the mode of goodness and having taken up Brahman Diksha and worshiping the deity. And the highest level is respect is given to Uttamadhikari. This leaves the field open with only people who are not chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Can we then apply the principle of Jiva Doya to such entities and be in the mood of how we can serve them to connect? Yes, that connect them to Guru and Krishna. Yes, exactly. You got it right, Prabhu. That's, as we know, there's Lord Chaitanya taught, right? Jiva Doya, Namruchi, Vaishnava Seva. Okay, so let's continue with this purport. Then Prabhupada says something for us. Don't worry about others. For us, one should not remain a Kanishta Adhikari. One who is situated at the lowest platform of devotional service. Okay, and then he says that we should, be I'd say for most of us, our goal is to become a good Madhyama Adhikari, one who worships the Lord as with love, makes friends with the Lord's devotees, is merciful to the ignorant, and avoids those who are envious. Whereas the Kanishta only, sees Krishna in the deity form and doesn't show the main point about a Kanishta is they don't know how to show, or they don't understand the importance of showing the proper respect to devotees. Right? They only respect the deity. Just me and Krishna, everything else is not so important. So I always think of this example. I can't remember. I don't think I told it to you. So Guru Puja in the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan. These days it's very, very crowded. I mean, I don't know about pandemic, but generally, when I first moved there in 1988, it was not crowded at all, except in Kartik. But now, has anyone been there for morning program in Vrindavan? Yeah, very crowded. Yes.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Yes. So one of the, let's say, one of the senior devotees, maybe a guru, initiating guru. So he's greeting the deities, pays obeisance to Gaurnitai, pays obeisance to Krishna Balaram, pays obeisance to Radhesham Sundar, takes the Charnamrita. Then he has to get from one end of the temple to the other end of the temple to do the arti, to Prabhupada. So how to do? It's so crowded. So sometimes devotees, and I always consider this a little neophytish, they start pushing devotees out of the way, almost like they're a bulldozer. And devotees are flying left and right, just so the senior devotee can, and so they see the importance of the senior devotee, but they think everyone else is just not very important. So I think that's like a modern day adjustment to Kanishta. Instead of saying Prabhu Maharaj is coming, Mataji, please. Prabhu, instead of saying, and it's funny that happened to me once in 1976. Prabhupada joined the Rath Yatra about halfway through the Rath Yatra, and I was just getting interested in Krishna consciousness. And so I all of a sudden I felt this big push in my back. And one of the sannyasis hit me with their danda to get out of the way because Prabhupada is coming. I was actually in bliss, it was wonderful. I got hit by a danda. But anyway, so sometimes we also can have this Kanishta mentality. My guru's everything and everyone else is Kitri at best. My guru's paneer sabji, but everyone else is 5-day-old Kitri. Something like that. So we want to, while we're respecting the seniors, that doesn't mean we disrespect everyone else. That's the point. So we may have some Kanishta in our hearts still, so we want to become good at becoming a Madhyama, worshiping Krishna, friends with the devotees, mercy to the innocent, avoiding the envious. Those 4 things. That is a Madhyama. Then, very interestingly, Prabhupada, like I said, he says different things in different parts of the purport, but he says that even the Prakrita Sahajiyas, they're chanting the holy name, even though they're attached to women, money, and intoxicants, they can be respected within the mind, which is, that Prabhupada is being liberal here. Other places, he will say other things about the Prakrita Sahajis, a little less kind. But he's making the point here about, someone who chants Hare Krishna should be respected. Then Prabhupada writes, in this Krishna conscious movement, a chance is given to everyone without discrimination of caste, creed, or color. Everyone is invited to join this movement, sit with us, take prasad, and hear about Krishna. When we see that someone is actually interested in Krishna consciousness and wants to be initiated, we accept him as a disciple for chanting the holy name of the Lord. When a neophyte devotee is actually initiated and engaged in devotional service by the order of the spiritual master, he should be accepted immediately as a bona fide Vaishnava, and obeisances should be offered to him. So we don't discriminate. I know sometimes, I don't know if it's like this in Bangalore, but in some places I know we're really careful to sometimes avoid preaching to certain people, especially Muslims, because if one of their sons becomes a devotee, there may be riots and there may be threats to the temple and things like that. I've heard that at least in some parts of India. So we may have to be practical like that, but ultimately everyone is eligible, and devotees do wonderful preaching in some of the Arab-speaking Muslim countries, right? And we know Haridas Thakur came from that. He's Lord Brahma incarnating as Haridas Thakur, and he chose to come in a Mohammedan family, specifically a Sufi family. But in general, we don't discriminate. So when we're preaching to people, do we discriminate about their caste? Do we say, oh, you're a Sudra, no, you can't come to the temple? Do we do that in Bangalore? No, right? Anyone can take. So this is Lord Chaitanya's mercy. This is Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And we see this. Prabhupada was born in a Vaishnava family, which is much higher than anything. But I don't think caste-wise he was born into a Brahmin family, right? So a caste person might say, but we know Prabhupada's, Maha Bhagavat, and he considered his father a pure devotee. He dedicated his Bhagavad Gita as it is to his father and to Baladeva Vibhuti. Okay. Any questions or comments on any of those points? We're good? Yes, no, maybe?
All good, Prabhu.
Okay. So then Prabhupada does talk about initiation. And he, this is quite a statement, huh? At the time of initiation, when a devotee fully surrenders to the service of the Lord, Krishna accepts him to be as good as he himself. And then Prabhupada quotes a very important verse from the Bhakti Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami, that Divyam Jnanam Yatodhad Yat. By Diksha, one gradually becomes disinterested in material enjoyment and gradually becomes interested in spiritual life. And then Prabhupada talks about his early experiences in ISKCON. We have seen many practical examples of this, especially in Europe and America. Many students who come to us from rich and respectable families quickly lose all interest in material enjoyment and become very eager to enter into spiritual life. Although they come from very wealthy families, many of them accepted living conditions that are not very comfortable. So I laughed about this because I joined the Brahmachari ashram in the 70s, it was not comfortable at all. Just like Prabhupada is saying, it was not comfortable at all. The Brahmacharis, we had this old, I don't know if in India we have YMCA, but like a place for sports. And so we bought that, and that was the temple. So we took all the water out of the swimming pool. And if you know a swimming pool, it has a deep end and a shallow end, right? And in between there's this one area that's on an incline. So if you got there early, you could take rest on the flat part, the shallow end or the deep end. But if you got there late, you had to sleep on the incline, which was not easy to do at all. And, I went from, practicing to become a lawyer and all that. And as a brahmachari, everything I owned could fit in a box, this big, just 2 dhotis, 2 kurtas, Bhagavad Gita, toothbrush. That's about it. So if the temple president said, go to another city and do some preaching, all I had to do is pick up my little box, and away I went. And we basically had 3 bags: a book bag, a bead bag, and a sleeping bag. Bus. So it was very much like that. And I don't know, maybe it's still like that in brahmachari ashrams in India. I've been to a few. Some of them, it's funny, Prabhupada once used to joke, brahmachari means dirty, he said. Because sometimes our brahmachari ashrams are not so clean. But, they should be, though, of course. So yes, so we were willing, I didn't even think, of course I was very young, I was still a teenager. So I didn't mind performing the austerities. As a matter of fact, I enjoyed them. But we didn't think twice about it. It was wonderful to live very simply and in a detached way. And then you had people like His Holiness Giriraj Swami, who came from very rich family. And he was a brahmachari, and Juhu was very austere. Oh my God. Juhu, before the construction and everything, was so austere. Now, of course, it's heaven on earth and, air conditioning everywhere and this and that. But before, it was very austere. Very austere. And he came, his father was a big judge and in America and very wealthy. Ambarish Prabhu, although he came from a much more wealthy family, right? The Ford family. He was a brahmachari for a little while. Yeah. So he, really left luxury for simplicity. And Prabhupada was very pleased. Very pleased. So I laughed when I read that. Prabhupada writes, when one becomes so disinterested in material enjoyment, he becomes fit for initiation by the spiritual master. And Prabhupada then talks about how it's important to, to perform austerities. And of course, our austerities really are basic and simple. No meat, fish, or eggs, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. That's sufficient austerity like that. Of course, we will all probably be fasting in a couple of days for Lord Chaitanya's appearance up until moonrise. So that's an austerity. And if we want to do some additional austerities, I mean, probably one of the best, it's not really an austerity, but probably one of the best things is just if we want to do something extra, we can chant more rounds. Right? When we take initiation, we say at least 16 rounds. We don't say 16 rounds, bus. Right? Some of us, we go, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama 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 Rama, Hare Hare, 16 done, Hare Bol. So we can chant more. Matter of fact, in the purport, Prabhupada said that those of us who have taken vows, we must chant 16 rounds every day. And then he quotes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, said that, you're fallen if you don't chant 64 rounds a day. Right? That's in the purport, isn't it? A little later. Yes. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that unless one chants at least 64 rounds of japa, 100,000 names, he is considered patita, fallen. According to his calculation, practically every one of us is fallen. But because we are trying to serve the Supreme Lord with all seriousness and without duplicity, we can expect the mercy of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is famous as Patita Pavana, the deliverer of the fallen. And Prabhupada says that 16 rounds, because people in the Western countries cannot concentrate for long periods of time on japa beads. So you should be able to do 64 rounds because you're not Westerners like me. You're not fallen like I am. So, but it's not so, the other thing is sometimes it would be great if you're on pilgrimage or you just take a day off of work. And it's actually not hard to chant 64 rounds. The thing is to get up early and get those first 16 done early. And then just have to do that 3 more times. I had a friend in Vrindavan who used to chant 64 rounds every day. And he used to say, actually, you're more austere than I am, because the first 16 are the hardest. Then it becomes much easier. So of course, it's not only quantity, it's also quality. Prabhupada also says one should not accept a spiritual master without following his instructions, and one should not make a fashionable show of spiritual life. One must be jigyasu, very much inquisitive to learn from the bona fide spiritual master. So that is, it is important. So we don't want to, if we belong to a Nam Hatha group or something like that, we don't think, oh, I'm feeling really pressured to become initiated. Everyone else is, what will people think of me? So we shouldn't do it as a fashion or just to be accepted and get a really nice name and all of that. But we should do it to want to return home back to God, and not by social pressure. Matter of fact, we can tell people that if you want to make advancement, at some point you have to decide to take initiation. But we shouldn't, Prabhupada writes that we shouldn't put pressure on people. And he quotes a song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And I can't remember the Bengali. I think it was in Bengali. But the translation is that I'm running behind you saying Krishna, Krishna. So in other words, we should be begging for the holy name, not being forced to take the holy name. It should be a strong desire on our side to be initiated and to, because that's the right mood when accepting a guru, right? Not like, I'm a rich person, so I'm doing my guru a favor by taking initiation from him. No. Rather, oh my dear, this material world is a place of suffering. I'm so fortunate to come in touch with Krishna consciousness. Please give me initiation. Please accept me as your servant. That's the right attitude. That's the right attitude to have. So what questions or comments do you have about your 64 rounds you're going to start chanting tomorrow? Or having the right attitude or whatever?
I'm Ramakrishna. I am Ramakrishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Ramakrishna Prabhu.
So, coming to initiation, the principles initiated for getting initiation, like practicing celibacy, practicing material enjoyment, worrying is material enjoyment. Then, of course, I am now past 60 years of age. When my circle leader sometimes inquire when you are going to take initiation, I am afraid whether I am fit enough to take the initiation. One, of course, now I am reading this now only. After reading this, I am really wondering, am I really fit enough to get initiated? But at the same time, I also find that there are many young people who are getting initiated. But I am afraid whether at this age, is it possible to practice that kind of, what is material enjoyment, practicing celibacy, practicing all other things? Is it possible at such a young age? So at my age of 60 plus, then I am afraid. So in that case, how it is possible to get devotees initiated into this another movement?
I think I understood your question, Prabhu, and thank you for it. Basically, what this, as you have very wisely said, how this translates, no interest in material enjoyment, is a minimum being able to follow the 4 regulated principles. That's how it translates into practical life. We can't expect, like you say, you're 60. I'm also 60 plus, so you and I are in the same category. So we can't expect you to, move to Vrindavan and live under a different tree every night and do madhukari, just begging, some roti here and a roti there. Of course, if you're from South India, you won't want rotis anyway. That's another thing. So the practical thing is if we can agree to follow the principles and to chant 16 rounds a day. And you're also well said, Prabhu, that it is a challenge for a young person to take initiation and promise to take those vows. It is possible by Lord Chaitanya's mercy. For one who remembers, what is the exact word? Things that are very difficult to do become easy to execute if one somehow or other simply remembers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But if one does not remember him, even easy things become very difficult. So the blessings are there. I took initiation when I was 17 or something like that. And I didn't, what does somebody know when they're 17 years old, right? Or 18? They don't know the challenges that life will face and this and that. So I was quite uninformed, but somehow I took initiation at that time. And many of us did take initiation when we were quite young. Like that. I think Jayapataka Maharaj, how old was he? He was in his early 20s, I believe. And he brahmachari and straight to sannyas. So it's possible, Prabhu. But thank you for that wonderful question. And in the chat, when we can consider we are ready for initiation. Well, one thing is we're chanting 16 rounds, I think at least for a year, right? Varda Krishna Prabhu's here, he would know better than me. And we're following the 4 regulated principles. And we really want to achieve the goal of life, to serve Krishna. And we really, like being in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And we have an attitude of service towards devotees. Something like that, I think, would be a good adhikar, a good basic way of judging whether we're ready or not. And we have some taste for hearing about Krishna. But it's a wonderful thing. It connects us to the parampara. It connects us with a Diksha Guru. It's part of our tradition. It's amazing when you take initiation, you have now become a member of the most glorious parampara, going back to Krishna. And is today or tomorrow? Today is Madhavendra Puri's appearance day where you are. So
Yes.
we're in the line. We're in the line of Madhavendra Puri, who was the first guru in our line to experience, love in the mood of separation from, like, the gopis. And we're in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa and Sanatan Goswami and Jagannath Das Babaji, Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti. It's such a glorious sampradaya. So it's serious, but at the same time, we shouldn't be too fearful. I hope that helps, Prabhu. That was Amol Sit. And then Sarva Pavana Nityananda Prabhu and Abhay. After we finish our prescribed 16 rounds, what should be the priority? Is it chanting extra rounds or doing other services like reading, hearing? In the Nectar of Devotion, someone just asked me this question the other day, so I know. Prabhupada writes that Rupa Goswami affirms herein that there are 9 different kinds of devotional service, which are listed as hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. Each and every one of these processes is so powerful that if anyone follows even one single one of them, he can achieve the desired perfection without fail. For example, if one is attached simply to hearing about the Lord, and another is attached to chanting the glories of the Lord, both will achieve their desired goal in devotional service. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this has been explained. One may execute 1, 2, 3, or all of the different processes of bhakti, and at the ultimate end, he will achieve the desired goal. So we all take a vow to chant 16 rounds if we're initiated. But then we might want to go with, where is our taste? Do we really love doing deity worship? Do we really love hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita? Do we really love chanting? We should, we can, after we've done our prescribed duties, then we could try to find, where is our real taste? Because some of us will just love to read. I'm thinking again of Bhanu Swami. I remember one time I was on a different flight and he was waiting for me before we drove to Mayapur. So in the middle of a busy, loud Kolkata airport, he's translating some transcendental literature. Right in the middle, nothing bothers him. He has such a taste. And some of us just love chanting. We can, just chant all day long. And some of us just love deity worship. It just absorbs our consciousness so much. So we love to do that. So we try to, I would say, once we do our commit, we've done what we promised, we can try to look for where our taste is. I hope that's helpful, Sarvapavad and Nityananda Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhu, I have a question on sometimes we see that initiated devotees move away. It's not that they fall down or anything, but many times after taking their vows, the devotees also move away for whatever reason from the movement or from practicing. So what is the position of such devotees?
Well, Krishna says in the Gita, we're going to study this when we get to the Gita, right? One who has done good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Right? And Krishna says, Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mamananyabhak sadureva samantavya samyag vyavasito isa. And then Shitram Bhavati Dharmatma. So he says that even if one commits the most abominable activity, suduracharo, achar means good, right?
Yeah.
Durachar means bad. Sudurachar means very, very bad. But if he's, this is a big but if he's bhajate mam ananyabhak, if he's actually serving Krishna with devotion, then sadur eva, Lord Krishna uses the word eva, he or she is certainly a sadhu. And then in the next verse, shitram bhavati dharmatma, he very quickly will become righteous and achieve everlasting peace. Declare boldly, Arjuna, that my devotee will never perish. So so if someone has done some devotional service, they're very, very fortunate. One time, and you have to be careful not to misunderstand this, but one time Prabhupada said, if somebody leaves, it's 50% our fault, 50% their fault. So in one sense, everyone has free will, and it's their fault. But sometimes, we want to behave in such a way that nobody would ever want to leave. The exchanges with the devotees is so loving. There's no envy. There's no backbiting. There's no criticism. There's Krishna Katha. There's kindness. I think we said this last week. If somebody's wife turns sick, then we go and we bring that devotee prasadam and bring prasadam to his wife, and we take care of each other like that. And somebody would say, why would I ever want to leave? Right? So we still have work to do to make the atmosphere such that nobody would ever want to leave. But if somebody leaves, they have their free will. Krishna never takes away their free will. Never. And so they may have committed some offenses. They may have be offending the holy name, this and that. But whatever service they've done is in their eternal bank account. And we should be nice to them and encouraging to them, loving to them, and then there may be more likely for them that they want to come back. Because Maya doesn't give up just because you get Kuntimala, right? Or you get a really nice name like Rasa Sindhu Giridhari Prabhu, right? Maya doesn't say, oh, now he has such a nice name, I can't try to infiltrate his mind. No, Maya is very chalu, very, very tricky. And so we have to take shelter of Krishna. So one time Prabhupada even said, this is a very heavy statement, he said, don't be surprised who leaves, be surprised who stays. Meaning that to stay, we have to have some real sincerity. If we're not sincere, then we won't want to stay. So, but you never know. You never know who's gone away when they might come back. Right? And we've had so many examples of this, especially devotees who joined very early in the movement, and then later on, came back. So we want to still keep the door open for them, as long as they're not offenders, aparadhis. As long as they're not that, then we keep the door. Oh, why don't you come? Sometimes one nice thing is to engage them in a little seva. Prabhu, I haven't heard from you in a couple of years right now, and we're doing Rath Yatra in a few weeks, and I know you're in the advertising business. Could you help us design a flyer about Rath Yatra, right? Or, could you come and, help out with some of the organization on Rath Yatra Day or whatever? Just finding a way. That's what Jayananda Prabhu, the great devotee, disciple of Prabhupada's, who passed away when Prabhupada was still living. And he had this faith that he would just engage people just walking down the street, because he was doing things like fixing cars and building Rath Yatra carts, and he would just engage somebody, say, oh, can you hold this hammer for a minute? Oh, could you just hammer right there? And he just had faith that their bhakti has just begun, because they've done some service to Lord Jagannath. Is that all right, Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhu.
Okay. Here's another direct message to me. Sometimes we are hurted very badly by others' behavior, either family members or devotees. We try to come over or get over that situation thinking good about them, but still can't. Again, their same behavior strikes us, that this person, devotee, did this to me. In what situation do you suggest? Well, we talked earlier in the very beginning of the class about respecting from a distance. And then I think we should very, very deeply meditate on Prabhupada's statement. Do not be upset at the agent of your karma. Do not be upset at the person who is delivering you your karma. So if someone criticizes you on social media, and it's like a special delivery package, DHL, express delivery overnight, giving you your karma. So that's a very deep meditation, isn't it? Do not be upset at the agent of your karma. It's a very, very deep meditation. Because the mind's tendency is to think it's all his fault. I'm going to get back at him. What a rascal. What a nonsense. We have certain words in this kind we use, right? But Prabhupada says, don't be upset at the agent of your karma. So we see Krishna's hand in this. And we see that we don't know what we've done in the past life. So that immediately puts things in a different perspective, a different paradigm. Isn't it? That is not an easy consciousness to adopt. That's what Prabhupada told a devotee. He told that to Peter Burwash, who was not an initiated devotee, but Prabhupada really liked him a lot. So you can put that on your refrigerator with a magnet. Do not be upset at the agent of your karma. Okay, we have a little bit more of this purport.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Sorry,
yes.
One more question.
Yes.
So when we are dealing with a number of neophyte devotees, which means not even initiated to begin with, and many times we actually request them to progress in Krishna consciousness, 4-rounder, Krishna Sevak, Upasak, and so on and so forth, and it sort of comes to shelter and initiation point. And whilst it maybe sort of seem to be forcing these people to take initiation or diksha, the intent there really is to give the Harinam to as many people as possible. So there's a sort of a dichotomy or catch-22 where if we keep quiet, it may take years for these people to take initiation. And to your point where you mentioned, we should be begging for the holy name rather than forcing someone to take initiation. How do we balance this from the initial, the person who's trying to really understand this?
Good question. I guess I didn't explain myself well. They should be begging for the holy name.
Correct.
Yeah, when they're taking issue. One way that might be helpful to look at this is we always want to keep the door open, and we want to show them on the other side of the door, it's very beautiful, very nice. And at the same time, respect them that they have to walk through the door.
Yeah.
So we don't like just shove them through the door. But at the same time, we make what's on the other side of the door very nice, and very attractive, and it's a way to make advancement and all the things in the Shastra. We just and we can even ask them, initiation is very helpful. What are the obstacles for you? What are the challenges for you? And talk about them in a polite way, instead of like, whatever your challenges are, they're totally bogus. And I remember when I was really young, 16 maybe, and the Radha Damodar bus party, it was called. They would be traveling in buses, all brahmacharis, and they came to my town, and they were trying to get me to join the bus party, to just leave school, leave my parents, just join. And, you're going to go to hell. They were giving all these things, getting on my case. It was funny because I was so scared of them, and I didn't want to just give up everything at that time. I was so young. I ran home and got $200 and just said, "Will you take this donation and leave me alone?" In those days, that was a lot of money. So yeah, we don't want to. We can encourage and show them how wonderful it is. We just don't want to say like, "So will you do it? Will you, like, next week? Oh yeah, okay. Guru Maharaj is ready for you. Are you ready?" Not like that, but just say, it's really helpful. And if you have some roadblocks that are stopping you from wanting to do this, I'm happy to discuss those with you and encourage you, because I care for you. The main thing, Achyuta Prabhu, is people should feel that we care for them, and it's not just another number, or Guru Maharaj should be nice if we get so many numbers, but that actually we care about that person going back to Godhead. If they feel that, then there's no pushiness. But if we're thinking, I made so many devotees and Guru Maharaj is going to be so pleased, and it's about us and not about them, people sometimes will resent that later on. Is that all right?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay. All right. So let's go through the rest of this purport. There's a little left. And then Prabhupada does talk several times about how we really want to work on offenseless chanting. One should know for certain that without chanting the holy name of the Lord offenselessly, one cannot be a proper candidate for advancement in Krishna consciousness. So all of the 10 offenses, that there's also 10 things we should do. So like it's the first offense is to blaspheme devotees. So we should praise devotees. The second is to consider the names of the demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be on the same, equal to or independent of Lord Krishna. So the positive thing is to understand Krishna is supreme and to respect demigods as Krishna's servant. The third offense is to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. So the positive thing is follow the Guru's order. Like that for the 10 offenses. Usually the hardest offenses is about blaspheming devotees, for most ISKCON devotees, committing sins on the strength of chanting, remaining attached to material things, and being inattentive. Those are usually the hardest of the inattentive is sometimes called the 11th offense, called pramana. But those four I find are usually the hardest ones for devotees. So we really want to get into the mindset that when we sit down to chant, this is our chance to show Krishna we're sincere. Because the mind wants to think about other things. The mind thinks, if I can think about other things when I chant, I can get my rounds done and my mind will be so peaceful. Right? So it is austere, but to go back to God, it is not no one said that it was going to be just like, paneer subjis all the time. There is some service, some work we have to do on our false ego. And so we want to show Krishna that by making every endeavor to chant without offenses. And basically that means chanting attentively. Bhakti Thakur says that from inattentive chanting, all the other offenses take birth. So if we can just chant attentively, then so many other problems everything else pretty much falls into place. Then Prabhupada talks about faith, that one way you can judge for ourselves how we're advancing from Kanishta, Madhyama, etc., is how strong is our faith. And then he quotes this Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 69. The second word there you see, Komala, that is called soft. That translated as soft faith. One whose faith is soft and pliable is called a neophyte. So we want to develop our strong faith in Krishna consciousness, and that is described pretty much further down this famous verse, Shraddha Sabhe Vishwas Kara Kahe Surida Nishchaya Krishna Bhakti Hoilo Sarva Karma Krita Hoya. By rendering transcendental service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. So this is significant because we're celebrating Madhavendra Puri. And Prabhupada quotes several places his prayer where he says, my morning ritualistic bath, I cannot do that anymore. My karma kanda kind of Gayatri meditations, I'll see you later. I can't do that either. And my worship of the demigods, I can't do that anymore. I just have to fix my mind on Lord Krishna. So we can learn from Madhavendra Puri that the essence should always remain the essence. Chanting Hare Krishna, reading the Bhagavatam, worshiping deities, associating with devotees, making our home a holy place or visiting holy places. These Panch Anga Bhakti, keep it really simple. And all the other do's and don'ts are kinkaras, are servants of that principle. So that is having faith that really all I need to do is develop my love for Krishna. And we accept all of the so many other things that we do because they can help us in that main point. So we don't put on tilak just because it's our sampradaya. No, as we put it on, we remember that we are Vishnu's servant. We do this because Prabhupada asked us to do it. So we do it out of love for the founder Acharya. So even something that could be very mechanical, like, okay, I put on tilak for the 5,000th time in my life, right? We do it to, we do it because it helps us achieve our real goal of hearing and chanting and fixing our mind on Krishna. It's not that you can't go back to Godhead if you don't wear tilak or if you wear yogi pants instead of a dhoti or something like that. They're not as essential as the hearing and chanting, but we do them because Prabhupada asked us to do them, and at least I do. And so therefore it increases my bhakti when I do what he requested me to do. Any questions or comments on this point? Okay, so we have 8 minutes left. Let's talk about the last sentence, which many people have thought is controversial, and I don't consider it controversial. And I'll explain to you why. At the end of the purport, Prabhupada writes that, therefore, a disciple should be careful to accept an Uttama Adhikari as a spiritual master. Now, if you remember in the very beginning of the class, I said there's 2 definitions of Uttama Adhikari. In the Nectar of Devotion, it's relatively basic. One has good faith and knows the Shastra. Right? In the Bhagavatam, it's one sees Krishna in every atom, and sees their Ishtadeva Spriti, their Ishtadeva, their worshipful deity everywhere. They just see Krishna everywhere. That is, woo! And how would we ever know if our Guru Maharaj is on that level? But it's very practical to have the other definition of Uttama Adhikari, that they have good knowledge of Krishna consciousness and their faith is strong. So that's practical. That's practical. Because Prabhupada says, one should not become a spiritual master unless he has attained the platform of Uttama Adhikari. A neophyte Vaishnava or a Vaishnava situated in the intermediate platform can also accept disciples, but such disciples must be on the same platform. And it should be understood that they cannot advance very well towards the ultimate goal of life under his insufficient guidance. So the neophyte has very soft komala shraddha, very weak, and not much knowledge. So they can't help us that much. The Madhyama Adhikari, according to this Nectar of Devotion definition, has strong faith, but not such great knowledge of the Shastra. So we should at least take initiation from someone who's an Uttama Adhikari in the Nectar of Devotion sense. Good knowledge of Shastra, strong faith in Guru and Krishna. And we have many, many devotees in ISKCON who are on that level. But how would we know who's the Uttama Bhagavat? Because even Prabhupada, he says that he may be Uttama Adhikari. I mean, he is Uttama Bhagavat, but the Uttama Bhagavat comes down to the Madhyama platform to preach. Because an Uttama Bhagavat won't preach because they think everyone's engaged in Krishna's service except for themselves. So how can you preach? So you have to come down to the Madhyama Bhagavat. So I hope I didn't confuse you there, but so many people, so many devotees over the year have written papers about this and that, and the Ritviks have written about it. But for me, it's really simple. It's the definition from the Nectar of Devotion, not the definition from the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. So, any questions or comments? Okay, well, I told you the secret of a good class is to always end a little early. And everyone is very happy. If you have it late, especially Bhagavatam class, and everyone's thinking, when is prasadam? The prasadam is going to get cold. When is he going to finish that class? People get very disturbed if the class goes on too long. So I want to wish all of you a very, very happy Gora Purnima. If you can chant some extra rounds, please do. Don't feel pressure, but if you can, please do. And pray and remember this point that if you remember Lord Chaitanya, anything becomes possible. And he is just the in one place Prabhupada said it so nicely. Lord Chaitanya just wants everyone to be happy. Bas. So my deepest respectful obeisances to all of you. You're very kind to me by giving me an opportunity to talk about Krishna. And of course, especially to Vraj Krishna Prabhu, who's on the call here. I don't see Murli Shyam Prabhu. And I, just Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Prabhu, on behalf of all the devotees and your students here, I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude and thanks to you for spending an hour and a half with us every week. What I like about today's class, and I've seen this consistently in the classes that you have been giving, is how one can see through and see your gentleness. Very soft-hearted, gentle person you are. And that's kind of coming through, oozing out in every word that you say. How to err on the right side, which means err on being more gentle, more humble, more appreciative of Vaishnavas, more. And so I think that's a pretty good benchmark to have. That I heard some conversations today about how do we deal with equals and those who we think are below us or something. And you kind of, I thought you gave a very nice answer by saying that, let's not get into a judgmental mood and just doesn't matter. Respect everybody like he's a very great devotee. I really like that part. And I think that's a foundation for a new community of devotees, foundation stone where everybody is appreciating one another. How I wish I could set up a community like that as an offering to the Guru Parampara, as an offering to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just that I wanted to say one thing. When you read about Lord Chaitanya's wanting to leave for South India, you can see Lord Chaitanya going to all his senior colleagues, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Nityananda Prabhu, begging them one by one, will you kindly bless me and permit me to go to South India? That's stunning. Here is the Supreme Personality of Godhead coming and asking one devotee after another, will you kindly permit me to go? And when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says, no, I don't want you to go right now. Maybe you should spend a few more days here. Lord Chaitanya very humbly says, all right, so be it.
Right.
So that I thought was we have God Purnima coming up in less than 24 hours. So I want to thank you for sparing our time, and I want to wish you Gaurabda 535. It's actually our New Year day, according to the Gaudiya Vaishnava calendar. From the deepest core of my heart, I wish you well. You have always been an amazing role model devotee for all of us. I wish you continue that way. And
thank you, Prabhu. And I think, that community that you want to develop, I think you have it here with these 54 devotees on the call.
They've been very nice to me.
Very good.
Very nice.
Thank you, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. There's no specific announcement, but the homework for next week will be to read verse 6 and be prepared. And also the assignment will come along the way. Please complete the assignments. Don't take it easy. Keep that enthusiasm going. We are seeing some of the devotees is sort of not giving attention to the assignments, but please take that as a important step towards progressing towards Bhakti Shastri. On that note, we wish you all a very, very happy Gaur Purnima tomorrow, and take care and be safe, and we'll connect again next week. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Same, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare Hare
Hare
Hare
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare Hare.